When you strap a famous person into a machine built to defy physics, you're not just giving them a ride, you're testing their courage, their composure, and sometimes even their ego. Formula One drivers know this better than anyone. While they spend their lives taming the world's fastest cars, their celebrity passengers often enter an entirely different world, one where control is an illusion and speed becomes terrifyingly real. Today, we're diving into a collection of unforgettable moments when F1 legends took stars for the ride of their lives and left them speechless. Lewis Hamilton and Kendall Jenner, heart-stopping in Miami.
Lewis, I swear to God.
Our story begins in May 2024 on the sun-soaked streets of Miami. The crowd at the Florida Grand Prix was buzzing, but nobody was buzzing more than the paparazzi watching Kendall Jenner climb into a Mercedes race car alongside seven-time world champion Lewis Hamilton. As Jenner adjusted her helmet,
I swear to God.
she joked that she wasn't scared. Hamilton smiled. Soon have her screaming. The moment the Mercedes launched down the straight, Jenner's calm disappeared. She clutched the edge of her seat as Hamilton accelerated towards 200 speed. Cameras caught her yelling, "Don't tell me that," when he described the speed, and at one point she joked that she hated him. Hamilton just grinned and kept pushing harder. Rumors about the pair's relationship resurfaced again, with tabloids speculating whether their chemistry on track signaled something more off track. Whether or not the gossip was true, one thing was clear. The model who commands runways and reality TV was totally powerless. James Corden's record-breaking interview. When the clock back a decade to 2014 and we find comedian James Corden standing in the pit lane of Rockingham Motor Speedway, mic in hand, ready to conduct what he called the world's fastest interview. Corden isn't easily intimidated. He's hosted late-night talk shows, performed in Broadway plays, and once stepped into a carpool karaoke session with Adele. But nothing prepared him for conducting an interview while traveling at racing speeds. Hamilton buckled in next to him, revved the engine, and shot off the line. Corden's prepared questions nearly flew out the window as the G-forces pressed him into the seat. He somehow managed to ask about Hamilton's favorite film, his rivalries, and his daily routine while they rocketed through corners. Hamilton answered casually, almost as if they were chatting over coffee instead of approaching 150 speed. When the lap ended, Corden, gasping for breath, declared that it was the strangest interview he had ever done. It was an early example of how F1 drivers can make the extraordinary seem ordinary. Millie Bobby Brown's terrifying introduction to speed. In 2018, the breakout star of Stranger Things, Millie Bobby Brown, agreed to ride along with Hamilton at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin. Brown, barely 16 at the time, had taken the world by storm with her portrayal of Eleven, a character who faces supernatural horrors with an eerie calm. In real life, though, nothing prepared her for the horror of real speed. Before the ride, she looked at Hamilton with wide eyes and asked politely, "Could we, not go too fast?" Hamilton laughed, replying, "You can't tell a racing driver that." Once they pulled onto the track, Brown's nervous giggles turned into high-pitched screams as the car rocketed around corners. She later admitted that it was one of the most terrifying yet amazing experiences of her life. The footage showed her covering her eyes, then laughing hysterically. After the ride, she hugged Hamilton, still shaking, and said she'd do it again. Maybe. Will Buxton and Sebastian Vettel. Interview at 150 speed. Will Buxton is a veteran F1 journalist who has seen more races than most fans ever will. He's interviewed world champions, broken stories, and walked countless pit lanes. So when four-time champion Sebastian Vettel offered him a ride in a Ferrari F12 during the 2015 US Grand Prix weekend, Buxton thought it would be just another day at the office. Instead, it became the story he still talks about. The Ferrari's V12 engine roared to life, vibrating the very air around them. Buxton, microphone in hand, tried to ask Vettel about his thoughts on the future of Formula One, his feelings on the season, and his love of racing. Vettel responded with a grin and pressed the accelerator. The car hit around 150 mph within seconds. Buxton's words started tripping over each other as the G-forces pinned him to the seat. Vettel answered calmly, seemingly unbothered by the speed, even cracking jokes about wanting to bring back the V12 engine. When the lap ended, Buxton admitted that while he had watched F1 cars race for years, he had never truly appreciated the physical brutality of the sport. Vettel had turned a simple interview into a lesson and a bit of a prank, reminding everyone that F1 drivers thrive on making the impossible feel effortless. Of course, musicians love adrenaline just as much as journalists do. The next story features one of the world's biggest pop stars taking a ride with an up-and-coming F1 driver and realizing he was in deeper than he expected. Ed Sheeran's sideways adventure with George Russell. During the 2024 Miami Grand Prix weekend, singer-songwriter Ed Sheeran, known for writing ballads that tug at heartstrings, found himself strapped into a Mercedes with George Russell. Russell, still in his mid-20s but already a Grand Prix winner, asked Sheeran what kind of ride he wanted. "Fast or sideways?" he joked. Sheeran laughed nervously and replied, "I suppose sideways?" Famous last words. The car shot forward, and within seconds Russell was drifting through corners as if he were in a rally car. Sheeran's face went from giddy amusement to utter shock. Cameras inside the car captured him shouting a censored expletive, then nervously laughing and telling Russell, "This is fun, I think." Afterwards, he confessed that the acceleration was far worse than the brakes, and he couldn't believe F1 drivers go through that day after day. In true British fashion, he described the experience as really fed up, half in awe, half in disbelief. The moment became an instant hit on social media, with fans loving the contrast between Sheeran's gentle music and the ferocity of an F1 car. It also reminded viewers that even global superstars become ordinary mortals when G-forces hit them like a brick wall. And if Sheeran thought it was intense, he should talk to an NBA player who decided to test his nerves in a similar situation 5 years earlier. Jimmy Butler and Lando Norris, a lesson in fear.
Hey, whoa, relax, relax.
Back in 2019, at the Canadian Grand Prix, Miami Heat star Jimmy Butler was in the paddock when young McLaren driver Lando Norris invited him for a lap. Butler, 6'7" and carved from pure competitive fire, assumed his athleticism would help him handle the ride. "Just don't go too fast," he said as he settled into the passenger seat. Norris grinned, always a bad sign for the passenger. The car tore away from the line, and Butler's bravado lasted about 3 seconds. Footage shows him gripping the door, eyes wide, screaming, "No, no, no, no!" Jimmy Butler isn't the only athlete who thought he could handle F1 speed. Across the Atlantic, an iconic cricketer learned the same lesson from one of the sport's greatest champions, which of his own cars he drove fastest, but his casual demeanor quickly vanished once Hakkinen punched the throttle. As the car roared through the first corner, Yuvraj shouted, "I think my coffee is coming out." He gripped the seat, his smile morphing into a mixture of fear and exhilaration. When the lap ended, he declared that he wanted to buy the car, laughing that he never thought he'd enjoy being so scared. As thrilling as these rides are, sometimes the experience is more than just a publicity stunt. For some passengers, it becomes a personal journey, one that touches on deep admiration and respect. Usain Bolt and others. Speed meets speed. Olympic legend Usain Bolt joined Hamilton for a ride in Las Vegas not long after the city hosted its first Grand Prix. Bolt has spent his life chasing speed, yet even he admitted that the lap was wonderful and that the G-forces were crazy. He laughed in disbelief, clutching the seat as the car screamed through corners, and afterwards proclaimed his awe for what F1 drivers endure. When someone who holds world records for 100 meters and 200-meter sprints calls a ride crazy, you know it's something special. These moments